Hello to current and future leaders. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Jason Seymour. I am the spokesperson to the U.S. mission to the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. And I have the honor of speaking to Egwin Fan today, a great guest. Welcome to the program, Egwin.
Hello, hi everyone.
Egwin, we were talking before the program about your incredible resume and all the jobs you've had related to corporate social responsibility. There's so much we could get to, but I've decided we will start with a very special YSEALI academic fellowship in which you participated. So please tell us where you studied.
I actually graduated from Nanyang Technological University in Singapore with a bachelor's degree in public policy and global affairs. And I participated in the spring 2018 batch of the YSEALI Academic Fellowship on Social Entrepreneurship and Economic Development in the University of Connecticut. So as you can see from my background, UConn. So I'm actually quite passionate, about climate change, biodiversity conservation and circular economy. And I really have a strong desire to contribute back to the society and embark on a meaningful career to save the planet and improve the lives of disadvantaged communities. So I think the YSEALI Academic Fellowship Program really gave me a good introduction to social entrepreneurship and how business can be used as a tool to really help the society and the community.
It's an amazing program, and we are so fortunate we, meaning the U.S. government, we are so fortunate that we get to find people like you, meet people like you, and help you on your journey. Tell us a little bit about the application process for the academic fellowship.
Actually, I think the application was quite straightforward. Just have to submit an application, write an essay, and I actually went to the U.S. Embassy, the Public Affairs Division. We had an interview with the staff there. But I think what was the challenging part was actually planning, which semester that I was planning to go, because I have to be away for 5 weeks, and I actually had to speak to my dean of my school to convince him that this was a really good opportunity and I'm representing Singapore, and to let him approve my application to go. So it was quite wild because I remember it was I had my midterms and then I flew off to the States, and then I came back and then it was my finals for my exam.
Oh my goodness!
I was away for
Wow.
like half the semester.
Wow, I can't imagine. I can't imagine. So, what was your trip to Connecticut? Was that your first time to the United States?
Yes. So it was actually something that I've always dreamed. I was a big Glee fan. I watched the Avengers movie. I always wanted to visit the States. So it was my first time to actually go and see, and for myself, how is it like in the Big Apple.
And tell us, if you could, I'm sure you gained many things from the experience, but if you could tell us, what is one special thing that the program did for you?
Yeah, so I think the program was really a good opportunity for us to really learn from the best from the States. And I think, in the field of social entrepreneurship, it's definitely something that's very developed in the States. And also the opportunity to meet with a lot of talented youths from all over ASEAN, and the network and the bonds that we forge. I think that is really until today we are still texting one another on Facebook, and whenever I travel to when I used to be able to travel, I'll always hit them up and meet them,
Right.
and hang out. So I think that would be the greatest takeaway I feel for the YCD program.
I love hearing that, because it's a program that it's really focused on all of Southeast Asia and not any one particular country. So that's fantastic that you stay in touch. And I want to get to what you've been doing about social responsibility and some great tips you have for young leaders. But I know you have some photos of your program. So would you share them with us?
Yeah, sure. So I think in the program at UConn, I think was quite robust and holistic. We actually we learned business planning and marketing skills. We had mentors to guide us on our business plan. So that was the deliverable at the end of the program, that we have to come up with a business plan and we deliver a presentation on it. We visited a social enterprise accelerator. And there was sharing, by the UConn professors and the alumni. We even visited, Harvard and Yale, as part of the study trips.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if the photos are
A
showing up.
couple institutions that some people have heard of, so that's good. So I don't know if you're able to bring up those photos, or my assistant can help us. There we go. So I know, and there you are, already showing your resume. But I know you have some. There we go,
Yeah.
UConn.
Yeah, so yeah, we also got to visit, Washington, DC, as well as in New
Hmm.
York. So yeah, it was quite a robust and holistic program at UConn. So where we really learned about social entrepreneurship and economic development. But beyond that, we also had a lot of interesting lifestyle experiences. So the next slide, you can see. I would like to share. There was this homestay component, which I think was really insightful to really learn, how is it like, living as an American. So I think it was quite interesting. The day where we met this family, where we're gonna where we have the homestay with. I remember he came in a pickup, and the first thing I noticed on the pickup was the NRA sticker. And when we
Yeah.
went to his place, I saw Bill O'Reilly books. I saw who is a Fox News contributor anchor previously. And then there are a lot of portraits of Jesus Christ and a lot of Christian paintings. So I thought, oh wow, this must be quite a right wing Republican family. But when we actually interacted with them and we spoke to them, they shared their story. They were from Louisiana previously, and then they moved up to Connecticut for his job. And then, they actually described themselves as moderates. They in the 2016 election, they didn't vote for either candidates. And, it was quite interesting that to see, how certain, symbols and political identities, you have some sort of impression of somebody purely based on that. But when you actually interact with somebody, actually hear their stories, it paints a very different picture. So I think that was quite an interesting experience for me to actually experience to see that for myself. We also did a lot of volunteering. We went to Habitat for Humanity, which was a thrift store. We also packed food boxes at Food Share, which is a food bank. So that was a big part of the program as well, to let us understand, the specific life of Americans, and where volunteering is a big part of it. We also visited the UN and the US Congress. As you can see, we actually watched I think the sports match. Like UConn is big on the women's basketball. I think they are one of the top ranked teams in the whole of the state. So yeah, really enjoying the American way of life. We had a barbecue at the homestays at the host family's house. So yeah, a barbecue in the backyard. We went to Walmart, all that. So really feel like you're living a life on American.
That was such a wonderful story, and it captured so much of US culture. It's so easy for people to watch movies or a very biased news station and get the perspective that Americans fall into these uh, these narrow pictures. But Americans are very complex, and they're complex politically too. They have lots of different opinions. We rarely neatly fit into any boxes, and it's wonderful that you got to see that. It sounds like a really good experience. So I'd love to talk more about your experience in the States, but I do want to segue a bit to talk about some of the things that you've learned from this program, some of the things that you've learned from your wonderful career, which is just beginning, but you've already had some wonderful experiences. But I know that you have some tips that you'd like to share with the young and emerging voices, established leaders, young and more seasoned professionals. You have tips for everyone. So please share a few with us.
Yeah, so I mean, for me myself, I studied international relations, and I was also trying to figure out what I want to do, as a career. But for me, I feel that making an impact is quite an important part, and I want to make sure that I do that. I'll be able to do that, in my job. So I did quite a number of different internships trying to figure out. I did consulting internships, at PwC in Singapore and Deloitte in Shanghai. I did sustainability strategy at Temasek. So I did a bunch of different things. And I think what I want to share is really three tips. I think the first tip is really, show not tell. I have a lot of juniors who come up to me who ask, oh, how do I get this internship? How do I, break into sustainable finance, for example, right? I would tell them that, don't just tell me that you care about society and the world, but really show us, what you've done, either in school or you do external volunteering. There are a lot of organizations out there like Enactors, ASEAC, which you can actually participate in. Or you can also volunteer, with existing organizations, or you can even start your own project. So I think the cool thing about, being a YSEALI alumni is that we actually get access to a lot of different grants by the US State Department. There's the YSEALI Seeds for the Future grant. There's the Alumni Community Project Fund. There's the Embassy Small Grants Program. So there is a lot of support for you, if there's something that you really want to do and as part of, being a change maker.
Egwin, you studied public affairs and you just did a fantastic job of promoting U.S. government programs. You could take my job. I'm getting nervous.
No.
But before you finish that tip, I just want to add that is such an excellent point, that particularly for young leaders as they're trying to get their first job and establishing themselves as professional, and they're asked for their experience, sometimes they only think, oh, I have to have work experience. And that isn't true. If you've participated as a leader in a volunteer project, that is work experience, even though you get paid. And as you said, the embassy has lots of programs, and the Young Southeast Asian Leaders Initiative, YSEALI, has lots of opportunities for people. So there are lots of ways to show, not tell. That's a great tip.
Yeah. So I would say that the second tip really is don't be afraid to ask. I think a lot of people might be unsure, might be shy, but I really believe that if you don't ask, you'll never know. Right, and most you just get a no for an answer. I think this is where you can be a little thick-skinned. If there's an internship at an organization that you want to work for, or if there is this organization that you want to help out with, just send an email or just reach out to the person on LinkedIn or Facebook and ask, oh, I want to volunteer, I want to help your organization. I think people really underestimate, this word of like free help, right? There's always things to be done, so you just ask, and people will really appreciate additional help. But even if you get a rejection, right, you get a no, but the person might be able to connect you to someone else who might have an opportunity for you. So I think that's very important, where you show the interest, you show that you are interested to do something, and they know of of your interest, and they might be able to connect to you. But if you don't ask, this opportunity may never come to you. So I think that would be my second tip. Be thick-skinned. Just go and ask. For some, if there's something that you really see yourself, you want to do, or you see there's opportunity for you to contribute.
That's great advice. Take a chance. Ask. You never know. And any professional will tell you, we get used to being told no. So you just have to, brush that off and keep going until you get some yeses. And yes, that's another great tip. Just ask, because maybe,
like
who knows what will
Kelly
happen.
Clarkson said, right? What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right?
Good. A lyric from a U.S. singer. I like that. Kelly Clarkson. Very nice. And then I know you have one more tip you want to share.
Yes, so I think the third tip is really about be curious, right? I think the field of sustainability, ESG, this is rapidly evolving. There are always new frameworks and standards like every other month. It's really, as a professional myself, I find it hard to keep up also. So you always have to be curious, to read widely, to learn, and attend a lot of events. So there are actually a lot of events out there which you can participate. There's the COP15 on biodiversity that's coming up. There's COP27 on climate change happening in Egypt this year. There's Stockholm 50, which actually celebrates 50 years of global environmental action. So these are all global events that you can live stream, you can participate. I can share that recently I participated in this Asia Pacific Forum on the Sustainable Development Youth Forum, which actually looked at the progress and gaps of the Sustainable Development Goals that will be reviewed at this year's high-level political forum. So we looked at SDG 4 on quality education, SDG 5 on gender equality, SDG 14 on life below water, and SDG 15 on life on land. So I actually had the chance, to represent Singapore as the only delegate there to talk about, Singapore's whole of government approach actually to addressing these goals. And an example is this new Singapore Green Plan 2030, which really looked at how the collaboration of various government agencies, civil society organizations, as well as the private sector can all come in to realize this vision of being a sustainable city, right? So and at the end of the forum, we actually developed a regional call to action document which provided a set of concrete recommendations to the UN and other intergovernmental organizations. So it's not really just talking, but we actually had something that we can show and we want to recommend, and this reflected the aspirations and desires of the youths in this region, and that was reflected up to the UN. So I thought that was quite a very meaningful opportunity to participate in, and there are many of such forums out there, and I strongly encourage all of you to be curious and just participate to learn and absorb all this information out there.
And for our audience members, if you're curious, as Edward mentioned, we hope that you'll write questions in the comments section, whether you're here live now or you've discovered the program at a future date. We look at the comments, we respond to them. We can send that comment at a later date to Egwin. So if you have questions, because obviously Egwin has a lot of experiences and might know some people who could help you out and get the answers to your questions. So it's great that you were part of this gathering in Southeast Asia, and that you came up with these concrete ideas. But then we get to the next step, which is something, a difficult element of what you do and people who focus on corporate social responsibility. How do you convince companies that if they institute these policies, they'll still be able to make a profit, that it won't hurt their long-term economic goals? And similarly, how do you convince politicians to embrace a policy if they're worried that they might take a dip in the polls and lose an election? I mean, sometimes you have to convince lots of leaders to get on board to some very, very difficult and challenging solutions to big problems. Do you have any tips for that? How do you convince people to do something they don't want to do?
well, I think you actually nailed the point about for in order to advance the sustainability agenda, you really need to have leadership at the top to really believe in this and really think that this is something that the organization needs to do. Because if you don't have that kind of leadership commitment, right, it's very hard for the employees below to want to push this. So I'll just share that broadly speaking, there's both top down and bottom up forces that's really pushing this whole sustainability agenda. We see institutionally, so you see the EU, the US, all these governments, they recognize that this climate change is a problem and we need to legislate, either both by providing incentives or punishment, right, to companies who are not trying to address these issues. So top down, we see this pressure coming down. In the institutional investors, we're talking about the pension funds, the asset management companies. They also recognize that this is a big, a problem, and it also affects, their shareholding, their investments, because climate change actually creates, what we call physical risk as well as transition risk, and this will ultimately impact, the value of the investments. So they recognize that this is something that they need to push and make sure that their investment companies are trying to become more sustainable. But also we see bottom up, right? Citizens like us, we actually have a voice. We vote at the ballot boxes, and many of us, and this in the millennial generation, we really see that this is an important issue, and we want to make sure that the world will still be around, when we are old. So I think the problem is that, a lot of these politicians that are in power right now, they're not going to be around by 2050, 2070, where the planet, has been trashed. It's funny because we're actually closer to 2050 than we are closer to 1990s, right? So we all have this nostalgia that, the great 90s, but we're actually much closer to the 2050s now. And that is where the UN climate change agreement says that we really need to bring down, global temperature rise to less than 2 degrees, or well below 2 degrees, closer to 1.5 degrees to prevent catastrophic, impacts to our physical environment. So this is an issue. Climate change is an issue that I'm quite passionate about. I think it is the existential crisis of our generation, and I really believe that everybody should play a part. No matter your individual, your organization, your governments, all hands on deck. We need to solve this.
Yeah, there was just a momentary tech glitch. I was very nervous, but you came back very quickly. What made you so passionate about the environment? Did that start at an early age? Did that start in university? What inspired you to pursue this professionally and personally?
So when I was young, I think my mom has always taught us the importance of conserving resources, right? Like don't waste electricity, turn off the light when you're not using it. Don't use air condition at home actually. And for example, like food waste is actually a big problem in Singapore. But my mom has always said, finish your food, don't waste any food, because the when you waste food, the resources, the energy, the water, the land that's being used is all wasted as well. So from a young age, being inculcated with the right values, I think that's quite important. But also, when I was growing up, I see, images of, ice caps melting. We see the pollution, in the rivers, straws up, the turtles. So I think that really I had a visceral impact feeling towards those, and I really feel like it's caused by humans, and it's something that we can solve. Although it's very difficult, but I do believe that this is something, I do have hope that I think this is something that we can address and work towards.
I really related to what you were saying, and I was thinking that your mom and my mom would be good friends. Very similar perspectives. I know that you have another slide that you want to show us with a tip for our audience. So perhaps we could bring up that slide.
Yeah, I think
so. Tell us about this.
Yeah, so I think there are many ways to make an impact. There's no one right way to do it. You can go into teaching, you can go into healthcare, you can join the public service. There are many ways to make an impact. I believe in that. I think it's important that you figure out your own journey. So I think this can be done through self-discovery, really understanding your values, your interests, your personality even, and your skills, and all this can help guide you perhaps to find some sort of a career or a job that you feel that can address your own individuality, but also make an impact. So I really love this ikigai concept. You see the diagram on the right. It's really about finding out what are the things that you love and what are the things that you're good at, as well as what are things that you can get paid for, as well as what the world needs. And I think that the intersection in the middle is really what we call purpose, right? So for example, like I love to sing in the bathroom, but I'm not good at it, so I don't think I can pursue that as a career. But what I really like is really strategic thinking and coming up with solutions and plan and think about what are the consequences and holistically address the issues. So that is the kind of the skills that I have and what I actually enjoy doing, looking at things from the big picture, right? And trying to see what are the parts that we can connect to address this. So from there, then I start to figure out, okay, do I want to go into consulting? Do I want to go into sustainable finance? Do I want to do marketing? What exactly do I want to do, and what you can actually find a living out of? And then from there, you narrow down to what exactly does the world need today. And for me, I landed onto sustainable finance and philanthropy because I realized that in order to do anything sustainable, you need capital, you need money, right? So it's really right now about the people with the money, those capital owners. How do we mobilize it towards the areas that needs the money? So we're talking about renewable energy, electric transportation. We're talking about sustainable agriculture. All these areas that require capital. How do we convince and align, the interests towards these areas? And we're definitely seeing some sort of movement. And I'm proud to be working for an organization that is helping this transition.
I just want to add to what you were saying. You mentioned several different careers in public service, and certainly I'm a big advocate for public service jobs, given that I work for the US government. But no matter what job you have, no matter what job any members of our audience has, there is room to embrace self-discovery, make an impact for the community, whether you're working for a business or a corporation, you can embrace sustainability as part of that business model. So whatever the job is, there's room for self-discovery and improving a community, a country, a world. There's room for everyone to be part of this conversation.
Agree. It's really about, yeah, that's why having that passion and having that desire to want to contribute, I
Yes.
think that's very important. And
Yes.
I think, that is what I guess the YSEALI helped me to discover. And a lot of the YSEALI youth, we all have that common interest and passion to make an impact.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Thank you on behalf of the U.S. government. You are a great spokesperson for YSEALI and all our great programs. Egwin, wow, that time just flew by. This was such a wonderful conversation. I gained tips along the way. There's so much more we could have discussed about your long career focused on corporate social responsibility and working with companies and leaders and inspiring people to do more and be more and think about our impact on our world. There's so much more we could have discussed, but we did get to quite a bit. So I know our audience enjoyed that conversation and picked up lots of good tips. So thank you for participating in our program, Egwin.
No worries. Thank you for having me.
Such a pleasure. And to our audience, thanks again for joining us. We look forward to the next chat. If you have an idea for a guest for one of our interviews, please share it in the comments below. And again, thanks so much for joining us. Until the next time.
Bye.